No, we start on time and we finish on time. Hello, Drew.
Hello, beautiful people.
Andro from Colombia coming in.
Hello, everybody.
Lindsay,
Love to see you.
Pat. Hola, Andro. Gil, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah,
What gen are you?
I don't know.
Good.
Yeah,
Good
I don't.
answer.
Somewhere in between.
Are
Hmm.
we in a lull, Rich?
Brees is rolling it. Oh, they're still rolling. I would give.
All right. Tony, how
Yeah.
was Santa Fe?
It was amazing. It was amazing. I met some
Oh,
unbelievable people. Yeah. And
imagine my
and, you know,
surprise.
and people are the magic in the world. So yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, let's you and I catch up on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Isabella.
Hello.
Hello,
Nice to
dear.
see everyone.
Mhm.
Joshua, Marcy. I think we clearly have a quorum, huh? So, as usual, we're going to start with hi, Brees.
Hi.
Thank you for sending me that note the other day. It was super lovely.
Love you.
Yeah, yeah. So, let's start with a meditation uh, and just get us all to arrive here for this time together. So, whatever position you need to squirrel yourself into, get your feet on the floor, and in a self guided process, take 3 deep breaths in a very deliberate fashion. Deliberate in such a way that your in is slow, your exhale is even slower. You feel your body move, your shoulders stretch back, your belly stretch out, and drop that breathing in. All the yesterdays and tomorrows are not here right now. And as you drop in to that central place and you start to explore and visit the inner wilderness, this place that you've carried with you since the sperm and the egg came together years ago. As you explore that place, deep in the center is a treasure chest, and that treasure chest is known by your name. And as you picture it in your mind's ear, your mind's eye, and you open it and hear it creak in your mind's ear, and you see the treasure that is inside there, and it's the story of your life. And it's all the stories. It's the tragic stories, it's the joyful stories, the hopeful stories, and it's what we're made up of. And as we move into this call today, think about what story is in there that for it is the time for that story is now. That it is time, this this hope, this idea, this concept about how you move in the world, it's time to claim and amplify it. And it's part of the reason for IWN. This is the group to come together with where you get to stretch with and you get to speak in ways you haven't spoken, listen in ways you haven't listened before. You get to move into adjacent fields of understanding, adjacent fields of reality. And this is an experimental platform, and that's a central component of it. So, as you imagine what that thing in your treasure chest is that it's time for you to claim and amplify, see if there's a way for you to practice that or invite it into today's talk. And when you're done, you can let the lid of that treasure chest close. You can tuck it into that room or sacred space that you've got. And with the next 3 breaths, you're going to bring yourself back out into the wilderness that we're all sharing together today in this Zoom call, this digital sacred space we're creating. And with that, we can open our eyes, and I'll introduce you to Vicki Saunders, who is on the top center of my screen in the blue. And I see Susie's here, and Dave Zaboski made it. Great. Joshua, excellent. Alan, thank you again. Uh, and uh, we've been on the call together, Vicki and I, for the last 20 minutes talking about this. And so, of course, the first thing that happened is we decided to throw all the rules out. Uh, you are, those of you who have been on calls before are used to a certain format, and that is not how today is going to go. Vicki her superpower is conversation, and it's one of her superpowers. And so we're going to be in conversation today, and we'll see what is revealed. I've got zero concern because both of us are quite comfortable in that realm. But in a brief introduction, Vicki and I met a few years ago at a conference, and she was a keynote there. And, you know, if you look at her resume or look at her background, you would absolutely call her a leader. And I was thinking about that the other day as I was walking around the property here, and I thought, but there's something else that's going on. And what I thought about was music. And I thought that more than a leader, Vicky's like a harmonizer, but invisibly to such a degree that if people were sitting in a circle playing musical instruments, and if there's always this person that has the it factor, and Vicky has that. Like she would come in and sit in, and all of a sudden the musicians would say, "God, that was one of the best nights." And they maybe some of them wouldn't identify that it was because Vicky came in with her instrument. But there's people that know how to hold the bottom down. They know how to find the groove. And what I noticed when Vicky was on stage at that conference in her keynote was, I didn't see any note cards, but she wandered and then found the groove and locked in and had everybody. And it was just a beautiful thing to witness. And afterwards, of course, there were people in a circle around her, and I walked up and hung out 10 feet away on the perimeter. And when there was a opportunity, I walked up to her and I said, there's 150 people here, and I want to be in a relationship with you. And she said, me too. And that was the start of our rapport. And we've been together in the same cities on more than one occasion. She's introduced me to Isabella, who's also on this call. We have a very musical, harmonic relationship. And I am super excited. I've been looking forward to this day for weeks or months. So let us get going. Vicki Saunders, meet everybody from the Irresistible Wisdom Network.
Hi, everyone. feel like I'm coming to a new home and I'm very excited. Nice to see you all.
Well, a lot of lovable people on the screen right here. So, how about giving us some type of intro to you and why we might even be doing this today?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm joining you today from land in Toronto, Treaty 13 on Turtle Island. And this is known as the dish with one spoon land. And so remembering we're all eating from the same dish and passing around this spoon so that we all are nourished. So that's where I'm coming to you from today. What wants to come through? The times we're in are really wild. We're like astrologically, I'm a sort of new student to the cycles. I've been paying a lot more attention to syncing my life and my breath and my understanding of what's possible to the cycles that we're actually in. And today is an incredibly auspicious day. If anyone knows these things, it's a solar eclipse. It's a new moon. It is the beginning of Chinese New Year. The galloping horse is upon us. Things are going to start to accelerate. It's the beginning of Ramadan. Anyway, there's like a ton of things going on. So it's like a really big day. And on Friday, Saturn and Neptune, I don't even know what half this stuff means, but so I say things sometimes with authority and people think I actually really know what I'm talking about. I'm like just at the top, like skirting these things. But a very, very formative moment in my life was when the Berlin Wall fell down. I was in Europe at the time, and I ended up being in Prague and staying there for 4 years after it happened, and it completely changed my life. And the astrology as of Friday is going to be the same as when the wall fell down. So like what's possible in the world, structures shifting, thresholds crossing, new things falling apart, things being birthed. So we're in an amazing stew of anything is possible. And which is a place that I really live. I've been in business kind of stuff for my whole life, but I'm not trained in business. I was apprenticed into business through living systems by growing up on a farm. And my family are this incredible group of creators who've created this amazing family business, which is a destination farm, which is undescribable, really just saundersfarm.com if you want to go check it out. But it's got something different for every season, and it's a magical place. And I learned how to create in the world by looking at sort of what is needed, who's here, what can be done now, how can we test it, what are we here to protect, and what do we need to let go. So these are kind of questions that I'm like always flowing with, and I fundamentally believe that there is an abundance of like every single resource that we need around us at all times, and we just need to learn how to get ourselves out of the way to see what's possible around us. But everything you need is with you all the time.
So
Yeah.
one of the things I've noticed about you every single time we've been together is that, you know, if we were playing cards, it's like I'll see you and raise you. That you take what the person you're in conversations with and just completely jump it up, either in scale or in proximity to now, and also in the content. Is that part of your magic that you're willing to, you know, we use the term channel, but it seems like you get around people and you say what they're thinking. You have this really graceful way of inviting them to expand into the moment.
Wow, thank you. What I've learned over time is that, you know, I think we're all tuning forks. All of us are here with a certain vibration to tune to each other. The more that I am completely in my integrity and simply showing up and being present and listening deeply, the more I've learned, I sort of give people permission to go inside and bring that part of themselves out. And I can very quickly sort of tell when people are like BSing it or like trying to perform or not saying their truth. I don't have judgment on that. I'm just like, how do I create the conditions here for this person to come out in their essence? And how can I shift in myself to make that invitation possible? And so like creating the conditions for each of us to emerge and be our best self is clearly my mission on this planet. Is, when I was in Prague, I was all of a sudden in a very different environment than I'd been for the first 18 years of my life. And every single person around me was dreaming about what they were going to do now that they were free. It was like the most intoxicating thing ever. Like literally every conversation was, now that I'm free, I'm going to ... Because one day there was a tank in their country and they weren't free, metaphorically, but also like they believed it. And then the tank drove away and everybody flipped a switch. And so I've actually seen it is entirely possible for us in an instant as humans to flip a switch and to shift our state of belief. And it happened to me like full body. Oh my God, anything's possible. Oh, okay. There are literally no constraints anymore. What could I be? How can I be that? And that's the time we're living in. Again, like what I experienced there is now upon us in the sort of land and in the space that we're in. Whatever we can possibly take in and receive as possible, we can create as humans. And so I practice being in that state and removing I have like no expectation of what will happen when we get together. I'm not trying to move you. I'm not trying to push you in a direction. I'm not trying to get you to wake up, any of those things. I'm just listening for what's the next step for you that you're willing to open up to. And I am a good storyteller of like, sometimes I don't usually go direct with people. I will storytell something tangential that has them go, oh, me too, and maybe take a step more courageous than they had been previously. I don't know if that answers.
So
Yeah.
hearing you describe that is my experience of you. I've sat next to you at meals and so forth before, and I can't remember the provocations, but you would just look at me and say, well, do it. Or why are you not? Or what do you need? And I don't know about anybody else on this call, but we're in a crazy time as humans on this planet. And we can look at all the systems all around us. And one of the reasons I was excited about this call is because every time I'm with you, it's encouraging, it's optimistic, and it's not in ignorance of what's going on, but it goes back to what you just said, that in any moment we can change. And I think that that as everyone on this screen is a seed. I mean, one of the metaphors that I love, and I don't want this to be about my conversation. I want to hear Vicki's voice more, but I can't remember what it is, and maybe somebody here can weigh in. Like there's a 30 or 40,000 year old seed was germinated that they found in the tundra. And, I get a lot of time alone to walk and think about things. And I thought that a seed germinates at this combination of moisture, temperature, light, nutrition. And I had enough time to say, okay, well, it didn't find that for 100 years. It didn't find it for 1,000 years. It didn't find it for 10,000 years. It didn't find those conditions. 20,000 years, it didn't find those conditions. Something in that seed was alive for 30,000 years. And the conditions were provided, and it germinated. That's one of the most miraculous things I can think of, both as a reality and as a metaphor. Because all of us are operating with our own set of conditions, and where it's our family conditions, it's our community conditions. And if we can be the ones that are awake enough to go, okay, well, what's the light here? What's the temperature here? What's the nutrition here? Can we provide the circumstances that will make this seed germinate? And we can do that for ourselves and we can do it for each other. And so maybe Vicky's the grand germinator. But you know, I just think that I don't know what's more important at times like this than attribute like that.
Well, I think interesting. I love the sort of seed metaphor because I feel like that all the time. It's like, what do we need to water? What do we need to care for here? What are the conditions that this person needs to be successful in what they're here to do? And that's an individual thing. It's not necessarily a systems thing. I remember, and I have had conversations with my mother, who's unfortunately passed away, and a bunch of her amazing, radical, crazy ukulele playing goddess friends. And I would ask over and over, like, what's the meaning of this? Why are we here? What's going on? And like constantly wanting to get underneath this experience as a human. And when I turned 50, I'd been doing all kinds of business, the way you're supposed to do business, taking companies public, doing all the things. And it all basically sucked. I'm like, this is just, the models are wrong. The way that we're doing things wrong. The way that we organize resources is insane. Like, what is it with this whole thing? And it needs to be rethought. I've known that since I was 18 years old, wondering like, how do you hack the system? How do you create a new one? What are the conditions to do that? And one of the things that really struck me is, so I had been doing all these incubators and accelerators and practicing a lot. I've experimented a lot with how you create different environments for different outcomes to emerge around innovation in particular, but it's really about humans to emerge at their best self. And the core thing for me was this concept of what we ended up calling radical generosity. Like, how would you act differently if you were surrounded by radically generous folks? How would you act differently if you were radically generous to yourself? And if you were surrounded by that vibe instead of suck it up, Saunders, deal with it, that's the way it is, and you were worried about like getting hammered for your ideas when you walk into a room versus know that you would be met with, oh, isn't that interesting? How could I contribute to that? How could I help with that? And so that's what we started with SheEO back in 2015, and then Coralus, which we're now calling it, this community. And it was an invitation to show up as radically generous soul, contribute $1,000 into this pool of capital. Like, this is my latest experiment. I've done tons of these, but this one is really caught fire. And it was contribute $1,100, put it in a pool together, and then invite people with dreams to change the systems and structures that we're in. Who has better ideas on how to do this with a business lens? And then we would loan out this money at 0% interest to the folks, and everybody who contributed money voted. So it was collective intelligence making the decision, not for experts. And so really wild things got picked that people were like, with a lot of experience, were like, what? What? And yet when, hundreds of folks decide something is interesting and they want to see it alive in the world, and they're adding what they can to it well beyond the capital, the financial capital. It was like, oh, I have a connection for you. I want to be a customer of this. I want to introduce you to these people. And all of a sudden being surrounded by all these people that were saying yes, full body yes, and we want to contribute to this and help. Things that were like completely impossible took off. And so we have been experimenting with this for over a decade. And it's been really fascinating. And this practice of being radically generous, oh my God, I am so much healthier. I look so different than when I first started. One of the biggest challenges of this is to actually receive from each other. It's, there's all kinds of like asking, you have these resources around you all the time, but will you actually receive them and not cut them off by going, oh, she said she'd help me, but she must be too busy. I don't know enough yet. She knows too much. Like all the things that we block receiving from. So the muscle of like receiving from each other is absolutely massive. In general, women kind of overgive all over the place and then deplete ourselves. But the receiving part creates the full breath, the in-breath and the out-breath, giving and receiving. And so that whole loop can't happen unless we're all giving and receiving. And so it's been this absolutely stunningly gorgeous practice that has it's like reframed so many things that I thought were true. Because when you do decide that you can be a co-creator of the kind of world you want to live in, the meaning, you start to see how you can belong. You start to know that these little things that you have that don't think they matter are absolutely huge contributors to other people's dreams. And we start to weave ourselves together and the connective tissue starts to go. And you create like a new economy that's like really resilient and interconnected and interwoven in ways that you can't even see how much you've been receiving sometimes unless you have an unbelievable reflective practice because it's just in the stew. And we know from biology that we're learning from Bruce Lipton and others that environment's everything, right? The environment that you're in, if you're in a place where it's yes and share, it completely changes who you can be. And it changes the outcomes of everything you're working on if you can receive it and step into it and believe it and participate in it. So that whole field is just incredibly delicious. Or you can like go hero's journey it over there with the narrative we have, and you have to have money to do anything. And then, you get the world we're in. 5 people have the same wealth as half the planet. So this experiment has been pretty juicy. And I believe we are entering into a time where I wrote a book in 2014, and one of the chapters was entitled "Everything's Broken. What a Great Time to Be Alive." And people were like, "What? What do you mean?" And even back then, I'd go to New York and they're like, "What's broken? What do you mean?" And now I don't think anyone would say they don't understand what's broken here. We're starting to see the system we're in. But in order to go to that new world, you have to believe that you have something to contribute and that things are, to get into that. And we're pretty much fed and painful narrative every day that we have no power and all these people have power over us. Totally not true. This is the most fragile thing we've ever created. We're at like total end stages. Capitalism, AI is going to knock it off a cliff. There's never been a more potent time to shift everything because instability and chaos is the best place to bring in new ideas. Literally nothing is as it appears. That little thing on your side mirror in your car. Objects are close, but objects are not even what they appear. This goes down with a perception shift in 5 minutes. So it's a really exciting time, and we have a lot of responsibility to be having deeper conversations about what we value. What should a world with 8 billion humans look like? How do we want to organize ourselves?
Now you guys can see why I invited Vicki to be on this call today. She demonstrates the generosity that she spoke of because I called her up and she said, "Yeah, when, where?" Just I'm in. And part of this is permission. And I see Marcy down there. Hi, dear Marcy. And Marcy's a wordsmith and super important person to me. And she teaches me a lot about etymology. And I love, like, I was going through a divorce once and she said, "Well, you're in avoidance. Do you know what avoidance is? It's a void dance."
Nice.
But she also taught me about permission. And permission means that it's per your mission. It's consistent with your mission. And that's what I experienced with Vicki, is that conversations with you give people permission to kind of acknowledge somewhat what I mentioned in the meditation about that treasure, that story that's in your treasure chest, that it's time, the time for it is now to claim and amplify. And those are 2 key words: claim, like, oh yeah, I am not going to, there are no more some days. It's now. And IWN exists for that reason. This was born in Shasta, Vicki. And there was a question we had to answer, like, what needs to happen for you to get this thing off the ground? And my answer was begin and continue. And people thought that was just the most striking answer, as they'd been writing paragraphs, what they needed to do. But it's like, no, that's all I need to do is begin and continue. And being in the presence of Vicki and saying, well, I want to do this thing. It's like, do it, begin, start. And here we are 9 months later. And today you are going to get the invitation for the gathering, the spring gathering in Boulder, Utah, that got completed last night, thanks to the tireless effort of Lindsay Ryder that you see in your screen there. It's a beautiful document that you all are going to see pretty soon. Because one of the things I wanted to talk about Coralus and also about IWN is that the importance of us getting together in person. This is great. Thank you, Zoom gods, for allowing this space to exist. But we need to be in the presence of one another. We need to hug one another. We need to feel the field that we create. We need to share meals together, break bread together, hike in the desert together, get scraped, come back with stories, and not be voyeurs to life, but participants to life. So you do regular in-person gatherings, right, Vic?
Yeah, we do a lot. I'm just about to go off to New Zealand and Australia. But yeah, we were hiccuped a little bit. I mean, I have been in, I can't tell you how many women's living rooms around the world in the first 5 years of doing SheEO, and then we switched Coralus. COVID sort of blocked that for a while. But we're back with small group gatherings, intimate, where you can get into deeper relationship. Because underneath all of this stuff is like the relationships open up. When we get to know each other's stories more deeply, we get to, hopefully, if you have enough safe enough space, people to start to share their dreams out loud, like you did and Shasta. And as soon as you share that out loud, then others are able to contribute whatever their gift is to what you're doing to help ease the journey for you. And so for me, relationships are at the foundational. I know I talked about radical generosity as a value set and a practice, but designing for relationships and for people to connect with each other is absolutely crucial. So yeah, that's a very big one for us.
And do you find that people, it's you have such a skill at doing it, but do you find people pick it up quickly?
Pick what up quickly.
That
Sharing and
it's
trusting and
well, it's a lovely thing to be around someone who is
yeah.
uh, positive and optimistic and
Yeah.
and extraordinarily generous.
Mhm.
But then they go back home to a context that's not that. And
Yeah.
so you create this organization where that's the common thread. That's the glue that holds it together. And so, I mean, I'm
Yes.
suspicious that you're watching people grow rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, our whole sort of raison d'etre and like if we had a central brand thing, it's transformation. And so it's how are you transforming yourself towards, the highest possible version of yourself while you're here and creating the conditions for that. And I would say in the early days of doing this work, people would always be like, well, it always feels different when you're in the room. So can you come to this thing? And there's always like saying there's something about you that makes this different. And that's why we're here. But the shift to Coralus is very much about folks showing up who want to learn how to create the conditions to do this in the world. That's the big thing, right? So we're all now practicing how do you create the conditions? Like I totally believe anything's possible. Anything that's stopping me from whatever's on my list is me. And shifting that and shifting my vibration. Every possible version of Vicki Saunders' dreams is out there. You can't even think of something unless it's already happening. This is the quantum field that we're learning so much about. And so it's a matter of getting into the vibration of that. Sometimes that has to do with the people that you're surrounded by, and you need to learn to shed the folks that are holding you back. If you're sitting in containers of messiness that don't let you be you fully, you need to figure out how to shift that, how to get out of that. And a lot of people are just like, well, that's just the way it is. I'm like, well, yeah, that's your choice. But how do you navigate your way to really understand, like, how do I create a day that is the perfect day for me? And how do I keep designing my life so that I can have the best possible version of me right now. That is a constant tweak. It's a trim tab. If anyone's a sailor here, like you're just constantly tweaking those things and learning and believing that you can do that and that you have the agency to do that. And so, yeah, this like, how do we're less about trying to figure out what's coming and more about being calm enough in our nervous systems and being able to receive the future that is coming our way. And so certainly learning a lot about nervous systems these days, where I talked about receiving previously. You can't actually receive from others unless you have a calm nervous system. If you're jacked up, dopamined out like crazy, like every single container we're living in is designed to like push the dopamine. And you need a balance of dopamine and oxytocin and GABA and a few others. Like your neurochemistry determines what kind of reality you see. So you have to actually become like a really good student of like how we started this call, attuning with our breath together so that we can create an expansive field of possibilities amongst us versus everybody coming in and wanting to just say their thing out loud to get validation and dopamine hit. Great, I got it. 3 people did an emoji floaty thing on the call. I feel great. I can go back now. I was heard. How can we show up with this different neurochemistry to support ourselves? So, I think we've been living in a construct of there's only 5 senses. And with the telepathy tapes and a bunch of other things and the awakening that's happening with people, we're starting to realize there's so much more intelligence around us than we possibly can imagine. And how do you tune into that? Like we're on the way to the universal human. There's so many more tools out there to help us become what we want and to get in flow with so that we can create the kind of reality that we are worthy of. And so sticking yourself in this, just like there's only 5 senses and whatever I can see and prove is it. We're beyond that. But like how to actually work in coherence in a field together to create the world we want, that's the new human school that's like very exciting these days.
Well, the pace of things is, I mean,
Yeah.
I look at myself in the last 5 years, 3 years, 18 months, that the access to expanded ways of operating it's only accelerating. And having you on this call, the first evidence was that I gave Vicki the idea that, oh, we break out into triads and we do this. And she said, oh, so you just want me to talk? She said, no, that's not how it's going to go for me. I need to be in conversation. So I said, okay, let's do that. And so we are going to break into triads because it's important for everyone's voice to be heard. But then when we come back, we're just going to open it up to everybody, because this is, in some ways, it's like talking to Jeff Vanderkloot, who's on this call somewhere, in that this is an opportunity to have access to a way of seeing, thinking, being that transcends the limitations that we put on ourselves and that society and culture puts on us. And I've watched Vicki demonstrate that with a calmness on stage that is so intoxicating that it's like I just walked up to her and said, I want to be around you. And I'm sure many people have done that with her. So with that, I'm not even paying attention to the timing, but I want to get into hearing everyone's voice. So when you get in your triads, really take to heart some of the stuff that Vicki's been mentioning today about things that you thought were impossible, whether it be in your life or in society or your community or culture or whatever. And imagine that, this can be literally the first day of the rest of your life where you see yourself having access to an abundance and generosity that heretofore had been not even something that you considered. It had been a wish or a hope or someplace in a someday. but it's right here and it's right now. So maybe that can be the theme of the conversations. I think we're going to go for what, 6 minutes, 6 minutes, Rich, 2 minutes per person, and
Yeah.
you can be your own timekeepers, but it's good to get your own voice warmed up so that when we come back, that everybody's voice is ready to engage in a big free for all. So I'm ready when you are.
Sorry, I'm catching up really quick here. It's going to just take me a second. If anyone has anything to add, this is going to take me a couple minutes.
Oh, to get I caught you off guard.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Oh,
did. That's
okay.
okay.
All right.
It's
Well,
kind of funny, Chris,
Yes.
because I had literally just put in the chat, if you have questions, let's hear everyone's voice. And then you were like, so if you have anyone, we'd like to hear everyone's voice.
Oh,
Let's go try us.
I have a question.
oh, I didn't see
Hey,
that.
Tony.
I have a question for you because I've been looking at frequency, energy, and vibration.
Yeah.
Is there a difference between the three of those in your opinion? I know there is, but I'm kind of wondering from your perspective the difference between those three ways of being or tapping into.
Yeah. I mean, so when I think about, yeah. So with frequency, there's like speed and compression and replication it's like a bit sharp is how I think about frequency. And vibration is like more mental bandwidth is kind of how I think about it. I'm like literally not expert at any of this stuff. And so if I was to think about, let me think about it while we're in the thing and I'll come back.
Yeah.
I don't know if does anyone else have a vibe on this or like,
I got something for you, Tony.
yeah, go.
Yeah, I don't know either. That's why I'm like I read a lot of stuff about it, but I'm just as like, interesting.
Yeah.
Frequency is velocity and amplitude, right? It's how close they are together and how spiky they are. Vibration, I would call resonance, which is something that we feel. We walk into a restaurant, we feel it. We meet somebody, we come within that 3 to 5 foot radius of them, and we feel that resonance. And it actually goes back to the first thing that I described to Vicki. She's the musician that sits in with a group of 5 other musicians, and all of a sudden they all start playing better.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that there's a better superpower than that. To be the possessor of the resonant quality that elevates everyone because you find the groove. And musicians use that very phrase. That's like you got to find the groove. Or last night we didn't find the groove. Or boy, we were in the groove for 3 hours last night. And that groove is a harmonic, resonant quality, and you know it when you're in it. For sure. I mean, raise your hand if you've felt that before, right?
It's like flow state too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you can meditate your way into it. You can art your way into it. You can breathe your way into it. There's so many things. But how do you make it a lifestyle rather than a place you visit? So,
Well, would you say then where does energy fit in the vibration and the frequency?
well, I mean, this is Jeff's domain. Where are you, Jeff Vanderkloot? Are you
Dave's
there?
got
I
his
see.
hand up.
Dave was there, yeah.
Oh,
Dave?
Dave's driving.
Yeah, I'm somewhere south of Salt Lake City, and it's just starting to snow. So, so vibration, frequency, and energy are different modalities of a similar kind of thing at different levels. You might think of vibration as the thing that's happening. Frequency as the structure in which the vibration fits, and energy as the transcendent sort of overall field that the whole thing lives in. And so there's these they're the same thing at 3 different levels of understanding. So instead of trying to find like a dichotomy, there's this triad that has the container, and that which is not the container.
That's so great. And there you go. You have everything you need all around you.
Yep.
Really every answer.
Boom. Thank
Yeah,
you, Dean.
exactly. Briefs.
I'm dialed in now, as I would
Right.
call it, in my groove.
Great. Hey, Briefs.
Hey, Vicki. Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to share something that came to mind when you were talking about creating the conditions that we want to see in the world. I did a retreat back in November here in Santa Fe, New Mexico, through the Upaya Zen Center. And it was called the Awakened Action Retreat. And it was Roshi Joan, Rebecca Solnit, Terry Tempest Williams, and Christiana Figueres. I don't know if anybody had a chance to sit in on that, but it was amazing. It's freely available through their website to watch. But we, Christiana had been at the COP at the climate meeting in Brazil, and she wasn't able to join us in person, but we were able to connect with her via Zoom on the last day. And, Roshi Joan asked her, well, give us the rundown. Like, what was the COP about? Can you distill it for us? And what did you really get out of that? And she said, well, I think it really comes down to choice, which goes back to your point about creating the future we want to see. Because she said she never experienced such a stark delineation between people who are going down this path of we're doomed, dread, the science says this, therefore that. And then there was this other group of people who were like, hey, who are you? What are you doing? I'm doing this, you're doing that. I don't know how that could work together, but could we try to figure it out? And she said she saw that across every single group of people there, whether it was the media, whether it was the scientists, whether it was the politicians, whether it was the indigenous people. She saw it across all of the people there, that there is a definite choice on how we view the future and how we move forward in creating that future we want to see. So I just wanted to share that because when you were talking about that and the work that you've done through Coleus to create those conditions, it's really amazing. And we've shown ourselves as a human race after COVID, when the world shut down, that we can shift the direction that we're moving in. We went right back to business as normal, and we're way beyond that now. But yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you can probably see this, not to like promote any dualities, because like that's our big challenge, is living in dualities. But every day you can kind of see in your world who's going to the future and who's definitely not going to the future. They're just like, this is it. Like there's a splitting of realities that's occurring around us. And yeah, it is totally a choice.
Totally choice.
Vicki, I wonder if I could just add something.
Sure.
I love what you were saying about radical generosity. And I have worked in an environment that had radical generosity, and it was extraordinary. It was like a master factory. I was an animator at Disney, and there were so many creative, amazing people that that everybody's input was honored because they had sort of developed their creativity to a level where you were just radically generous, and the level of collaboration was so exciting. So I think that is a real key piece to how we move forward. And then I wonder, how would you help people build trust inside of an environment like that?
That's so amazing. Such a good question. Because for me, all this like trust gets built through experience, working together. And I mean, we put money in the middle of our experiment. Like that's a pretty like an extra kind of factor on top of it. And so the depth of the relationship kind of ties into how much trust is there. Like the deeper the relationships, the more that you know each other, the more trust we see built. Once you actually really start to understand each stories and where people are coming from, because prior to that, you're like making up stories about people. And so that's been a really big factor for us. And trust gets built over time, participating in things that seem crazy and impossible to you, and then watching it work out. We have seen that so many times where in the beginning days, we have like a 92-year-old in our community, and someone's like, she didn't even look at the financials when she was picking what businesses to choose from. And then as the message sort of trickles out, like half of the people don't look at the financials. And still we had this like crazy payback rate, because when you shift the conditions, it doesn't really matter what people say. It's all projections anyway. It's all made up. Whatever's on your financials, right? And when people decide to contribute to something and participate in it, you like just completely shift all the conditions. So when people started to see that happen over and over with like something where you're like, that thing for sure is going to fail, and this is like a rocket ship, and the rocket ship crashes, and the other thing totally flies to the moon, then you're like, I don't know anything. I literally don't know anything. So then you instead of trying to like orient it and like prove yourself outcomes before you participate, you understand that your participation in this creates the shift. And trusting the collective is like the smartest path, right? You may not trust yourself, but in a collective space, there's other intelligences here that can help us along. So through experience, people start to shift their story, Dave, is what we've noticed. You may not even really trust when you're participating, but then you have like experience after experience that shows you things all work out. It's going to be okay. It's okay to walk into the uncertainty and try things. Rich, you want to send us off? Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. Jan wrote in that, what if we don't do triads and just keep jamming on this? And I said, fine with me.
Okay.
So,
cool.
yeah. So, I would expect to hear Jan's voice.
I was hoping to hear everybody else's, Chris, because I'm really just enjoying riding this wave. As Chris mentioned in the beginning, he and I are sharing a cancer journey, and I'm just coming into the possibility of some things in my life. And one of the things that's happening is I'm going to a retreat in outside of Dublin in Wicklow, which is a very sacred place, in May. And it's all about the sacredness of space and place. And it's some yoga nidra teachers I'm really excited about. And then comes in from the side is, I'm all of a sudden, for the first time in 30 years, connected with my ancestors in Sweden. And I'm going, I should go to Sweden, so I'm starting to play with that. And I feel both this, like I'm scared to go and I'm like so excited to go. And so I just want to hear from more other people. And Breeze Robertson, I'm coming to Santa Fe for another retreat in April. I'd sure like to meet you.
Oh,
so
I would love that.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all. Thanks.
Good job, Jan.
Thanks.
So let's turn this into a wide open conversation. People can turn their microphones on and see what comes up, see what percolates. Hi, Wanda.
Hi. I've been so like blown away by this conversation, and in terms of what was just said about the conditions changing, it made me think about the beginner's mind and how liberating that is, because you don't hold yourself back from these pre-conditioned ideals of things, and you have such a like more expansive way of problem solving or imagining. And I think that's such a beautiful reframe, this like working towards just the changing the conditions so that it doesn't in fact offer that up.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I think, this ability to sort of design experiences for people that maybe reduce some of the risk so that they can try on being a bit different has been really fascinating. So the thing that we did at the beginning is you're gifting this capital, you're not getting it back. It's already gone. What's the worst that could happen? It's already out of your wallet, right? Like, okay, let's see how this experiment might work. And we are living in a time, which is even worse now than it was 10 years ago, of believing this is the only way to do things.
Yeah.
Like it's completely made up by humans, right? And every 400 to 600 years, there's a fork in the road. If you go back in history far enough, my favorite person writing about this is Manfred Max Neef. He's no longer with us. He's a Chilean and economist that I met at Davos many years ago. And here, I'll just put it in if you want to go geek out on this. Oops, it's Neef. And he talked about, like there was the time of St. Francis of Assisi and Thomas Aquinas. It's fork in the road. We could have gone either way. And if we'd picked Assisi, we would have been in this much more relational, ecologically centered approach. Instead, we went Aquinas and science and like proof, 5 senses. And so we are at the end of this because we chose that, but it was a choice at that moment in time. And we continuously are making these choices all the time of like what we think is possible. And if we get enough folks to believe that, we can live within the ecological realm that we're in. I mean, we're like, it's completely nuts. I'm sure you all know these things, but like being in an economic model where you basically just take everything that doesn't fit with your model and you just call it an externality. And then everyone just believes it and goes along. It's like, no problem. We have infinite resources. I mean, this is the thing that's happening with AI right now is that we are not taught, we're talking about productivity. Like imagine how productive we can be, but like the environmental cost to scale up at this, it's like not going to happen, right? China owns all of the rare earth materials. They will decide who gets what. Australia is a quarry. Like we're really finally, this is the last kind of bet that we see in this economic model that we have. We're going to understand the limitations that we have from a biophysical perspective that is going to allow us to sort of break through. And for me, the collapsing of systems, as painful as that is likely to be as we go through, creates a vacuum for us to float in. What's next? That's the place that's where I play. That's why I'm here. The work that we've been doing for the last 30 years is like encouraging and nourishing and nurturing people to believe that where they see something that doesn't make any sense and they can rethink it and come up with new models, we're going to need you. So how can we bolster you and get you ready for when this collapse starts to come with the existing system? And this happened over and over and over in history. We just, as Hillary Clinton once said at a thing I was at, the problem with the Middle East is it has too much history, and the problem with the North America is we have none, right? We just don't know anything about our history. And so I fundamentally believe in our creative nature to be able to shift anything. We just have to get enough of us collectively together to believe that's possible and be practicing the world that we want to create. That's the big one.
Some of you remember Owen Gaffney from the Nobel Institute a few months ago. Do you remember his quote was, the future is built by the optimists? Like people who tear stuff down don't build futures. It is the people who are creating. It is the people who are looking ahead to their contribution, which is another Marcy word, contribution with tribute, right? It's not just an investment. You're engaging with from a stance of tribute.
Well, and a lot of this stuff is, we're in a moment where we have to really hold a lot of distance, right? You have to sort of look at the way things are and then, believe in this alternative piece. And technology has been used to really polarize us and have us think that we're really not in agreement, which is not true. Like the vast majority of people believe that something better is possible, that we're out of whack, etc. But we keep getting fed this, you're like us, them duality separation. If you look at Taiwan, there's an unbelievable experiment with Minister Tan, who took all the comments off social when they started to do a lot of democracy practice over there. And then they could just see that people were like absolutely in agreement. It's just when the comments get used by a few voices to make it sound like we're separate, then we question it and then we step back and think that we have to fight against. That's not the case at all. So there's some like good examples of how we're being kind of hacked, right, with the technology and brainwashed to think it's quite different than it is. So
I see Vikram nodding his head.
Yeah, I've been thinking just the last bit you just said, Vicky, specifically. I've been thinking about this, how in economics there's this concept of consumer surplus and producer surplus. And it's like the wet dream of a corporation to be able to charge each individual the highest possible price they can charge you, so that they can extract from you the greatest possible profit. But the next person might only be willing to pay 10% of what you pay. And what you just described, it's we're hacked in to all this technology which can, change our individual reality for us. But all it takes is to step away, to step away and to step back. And for example, this group, right? Like we could just sit here and open up Twitter or LinkedIn, and you're in your bubble, and the algorithm shows you what it just amplifies the state that you're in. And so I think I was just thinking about this earlier, and it's come up again here. But there really is, there's something around there's like an activation energy that we need to bring that optimism back in. But very quickly you can draw on the communities around you and shift that. And I think the thing that I'm thinking about is how, also, like with the radical generosity, how do we change that underlying objective function of all these systems that we're playing with, so that they reflect that back and not reflect the doom and gloom back again. So
absolutely. Yeah. And I think the one thing you said there, which I would love to just, double click on and underline, is the step away and the slow down, right? We are going at a faster pace than we can feel. And so stories stay in place longer than they should because they're not true. We know most of the stories we're carrying around aren't true. When you slow down enough to have a moment of reflection on it, you're like, oh yeah, that's not true. That person just contributed all these things. Oh, wait, we're more in relationship than we think. But if you just sign up for the hype of it coming at you, you don't get a break in your system, so you can't actually see what's really happening. Isabella?
Yeah, hi Vicky, this is great. And everyone. I'm I don't have an articulate question, and that's the point that I'm going to try to just go around for a second, is that so I am one of these people that are holding these spaces for young people to practice slowing down and bringing down their nervous system enough to, first of all, feel what it feels like to be human, first of all, and then connected to each other and the world around them. And I do feel like we oscillate, all of us, between this kind of optimism and just fear and so on. And so there's always this coming back to calming the nervous system, especially together. And there is something about the fact that even as we speak here, it sounds as if we have the it that we're trying to move people to. And there's a question there that is just, it's random, but it feels like it's often the kind of thing that I'm asked, like, where can we work at most or best, or what is next? And the it feels like there is actually an it that we're going towards that is in, and not only is it not dual? It's anything that we can manifest anything. And therefore, first of all, where do we start? But second of all, is the question, I think we only are trained to think in what is the next answer. And what my concern is that we don't have any practice in staying in the unknown and staying way longer than we think, because everything feels so dire. And so, again, I don't have an exact question, but it isn't what is something like the new algorithm. There is something about how long can we stay in the unknowing to actually feel something emerging that has nothing to do with us, that has nothing to do with humans anyway? Like, we can participate, but I feel like I'm not sure that we have to be any part of that leadership of the next phase of. And so I don't know what I knew that I was going to get into this like devolving to the end of like that,
Yeah.
but it's something that I can't point to is really what I'm asking some conversation around.
Yeah. I mean, thanks. Izzy. Like, I think part of the thing is obviously like you do you. What is yours to do? I mean, this is a question I seem to be sharing a lot these days with folks that are coming to me with things. Is that yours? Is that really yours? And then start there. And almost everything that is collectively created is flowing. And if you're just trying to do you individually, that stuff is like, there is no hero's journey, not a thing. And so but I love the practice of staying in the unknown. And I mean, it doesn't really matter if we don't have a ton of practices on this right now, or we're not really well trained in it, because it's in us now. It's being shown. Like, there's no avoiding it. We are in the uncertainty. There are no more 5-year plans anyone's talking about. That is absolutely cuckoo. So we are being given exactly what we need to evolve, and the seeds of activation are inside of us. So, hey, Alan.
Hi. So I wanted to throw an idea I've been playing with into the mix. There's a book by Oxford philosopher Cecilia Hayes called Cognitive Gadgets. And one thing she observes, there's a whole story about how anatomically modern humans became behaviorally modern humans. Like, we idled along for a couple 100,000 years, and suddenly there was art, and tool sets started getting elaborated, and this and that. And that idea is starting to crumble because they're discovering, well, there was art here for a little while and it went away, or there was some elaboration during that sort of dark 200,000 years. And her theory is that it's not a single community, but you have to have enough social density so that the communities can spark each other, and then you create a state in which it stops being as fragile. So the idea is it's not just how we can support each other, but how our communities can interconnect to support each other.
Love it.
I think is part of the challenge.
Yeah. And I think, the scale question, which has just been like the biggest dream killer on the planet. I hate that question so much. How's it going to scale? It has really stopped a lot of the incredible imagination that we have. Like, smaller groups is where everything happens, right? We all throw around the Margaret Mead quote all the time. But getting into the smaller groups, and then the network effect, because we're still living in the hierarchy, right? And so the network effect of all these groups of 100, deeply resilient because they're all interconnected and sharing the resources they have and have mapped it well locally, then network together, can create a very different kind of world where you do really start to feel abundance and safety in that smaller thing. But if you're trying to create like the one thing to replace the thing we have right now, which is where I see a lot of people get stuck, that's where you don't go anywhere. We're in stasis, frozen. I know this is really terrible, but like, what's the replacement? I'm not going to move until I know the replacement. I'm like, it's not how it works.
Yeah. And I've been digging into disaster communities.
Yeah.
And we talked about Rebecca Solnit earlier. She's got a great book on it. But it's a situation in which people mobilize. They just do it, because they have to, and they do it in community. The hurricane in the Carolinas and was a great example. People showed up and chainsawed a path into each other's houses so they could get out, and then started building like community stores and a place to charge your phone, and and we may all be in a disaster community at this point, so we might as well act like it.
Yeah, I think that the future is arriving for some communities faster than it is for others, depending on where you live geographically. And yeah, I mean, there's just so much evidence around us all the time of how we can come together. And then we're told, oh, you can't, because we think everybody has to be taken care of at once. It's just not the way it's going to happen. But I love that. Yeah. People saw it during COVID. We see it during blackouts all the time, right? And then you start to, like, I was in Prince Edward Island during the hurricane, which is really crazy, and had to be rescued out of my cabin at like 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever it was. And as I was walking across the field with like water up to here, I remember thinking, oh, I'm in one of those videos I watch on TV. Like, here I am. Okay. And then over the next 2 days, I watched how every one of the 60 plus people that were there for this wedding, who I want on my team, right? Who has skills out of this group. And it was really fascinating. Who knows how to work a generator? Who knows how to, work a hammer and board, like all the things. It was really quite awesome to witness how everyone had a contribution to make as part of this. So it's unfortunate that we almost seem to have like this absolutely impossible crisis where there's just no chance in order to see how amazing we are together. But anyway, we'll see how that emerges.
There's a great film that I've really enjoyed. It's called Starman. And maybe some of you have seen it. A man comes to Earth and discovers humanity. And throughout the film, we're seeing the ways that humans are basically hunting each other and are betraying each other. And then we see that a meteor hits, and people immediately come together in a disaster community. And one of the last lines that Jeff Bridges, the Starman, says is, when things are at their worst, humans are at their best. And it can sound like a cliche, but I moved to Crested Butte, Colorado, to fight a molybdenum mine with a number of young people, casual people doing intense work 50 years ago. It was a disaster community until last year when we won the longest fight in the history of extractive mining, a community of 1,500 people. And what we had to discover, because we would have had canyons filled with non-biodegradable tailings, like toxic waste in our gorgeous valleys. We are one of the upper and most important watersheds in this part of the West. It was going to be a disaster. And so for 50 years, people who were in our 20s and 30s fought this thing, with each person developing or bringing a skill that they had no idea would feed into a beautiful process that needed intention and attention, duration, and intensity. And in our community, there's something that we've developed, which is treat people as sacred until they believe it themselves. And in doing so, people in this community have almost medieval guild titles. Man about everything. The Feast of Arians, who make our huge feast. People have powerful names that couldn't exist anywhere else except for here because of the disaster piece of it that we've all lived with. And we've lived well, not perfectly. One of our other sayings is nothing is too small. Nothing is too small. It's impossible to take in, for me at least, and many people, the potential disasters of a global nature. We need to be aware, but being in action truly means that we listen to our ancestors. We listen to place spirit. I think you said place and space. That's what Jan said. Place and space are sacred. And deepening into that and creating things that are necessary for people in space, in particular place spirit, has become one of the specialties of individuals in our community. Their work could adapt elsewhere, and certainly we've traveled to help people understand how to build these kinds of communities. But all we can do is tell them that our belief system, because you said this earlier, Vicki, belief is so important. And basically, that is an ancient word which means I love. I love. Leaf. I I am with you. I am deeply, profoundly with you, and place. And so in the ways that perhaps humans have lived for thousands of years in an animistic way, may be what we are also developing, much more relationship with place spirit, inner city, urban, ex-urban, suburban, rural, frontier. Each has a sacred place spirit that can help individuals recognize what the need is and how each person has something that they bring to it, much as a guild develops itself. Thank you, Vicki, so much for bringing these nuanced pieces into the concept of economy, of
Yeah.
eco-nami. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, first of all, I want to move to Crested Butte. Thank you very much. I want to hang out with people that have titles, great titles. And that, I mean, as far up as you go geopolitically, I'm listening to podcasts by Nate Hoggins. Don't know if anyone else knows Nate here. But I'm really loving his Great Simplification podcast series. He does these, maybe he does something every week. They're excellent, bringing on really cool people. But like underneath all of that, like if you can sort of see all the systems failures that are coming, that this doesn't make sense, the economic model doesn't make sense, all the different things, the sense making underneath that, I've been like playing with this for 30 something, 40 years, is at the end of the day kind of what we're doing. But just like get into small groups, meet your neighbors, map who's got what. There's so much more abundance around you than you think. People that have things in abundance often don't value them.
Mm-hmm.
People that have 350 acre farms that are like, oh, I got this burden. My parents left me this thing. What do I do with it? And oh my God, the people that like know farming are like, what? Let me help you. Like we have so much around us that we're unaware of. And so if you're one of those organizer people or other organizer people, find them. We need to just be well placed for what's coming our way and to know that it's a matter, like we have a practice at Coralus of flowing resources to where they're needed most with the least amount of friction, being in coherence in a community. And when I like resources are like all forms of capital. People think money is the most important. We have learned over the last 10 years that money is actually the least important thing that's flowing here. It's the emotional support, the network connections, like all the different bits. And to be able to flow that well, you need to be in relationship. You need to know who needs what, when. And there's a few nodal people who are amazing at like paying attention to like what the status is for people as they're going through these things, like how to reorganize the abundance of resources that exist on the planet to get to where they're needed most in service of life. That's the work.
Wow.
Beautiful. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a mic drop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful to meet all of you. Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
I'll share like some actual podcast things or stuff if you're interested, like things that are really, there's one in particular that just like rocked my socks last week. I'm like, okay, now I understand. This is the state of everything. Good. Doesn't matter anymore. Get back to the main stuff, which is find your people, get connected. Don't listen to the noise, glance, do not stare at what's going on.
So this is a time for burning desires. If there's something you're thinking about and haven't brought up, if your voice hasn't been heard, this is the opportunity to do exactly what Vicki just described, create community. And we're doing it here. It's actually the central theme of IWN, is creating community of people who are curious about the possibility to live in the world that we dream is possible. And I've got relationships with almost every one of you here, and there are stories of Vikram in the jungle. So one question I have is around psychedelics, actually, because it is giving people access to adjacencies. It's giving people access to fields. It's giving people access to, uh, well, I guess it was, I don't know if it was Michael Pollan or in one of his books talks about that uh, the pathways in the brain after psychedelics is like it's like a snowstorm has come, and now you can ski down a new run where those other grooves are very, very deeply established. And I know Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert. Richard Alpert didn't, but Timothy Leary thought that LSD was the solution to waking people up. And, it did wake some people up, and it also escaped the lab and turned into, uh, what humans do so often. Anyway, that was a question I had about, uh, I'll admit it. Psychedelics have absolutely expanded my life. Vikram, I don't know if I can tell stories about you, but you know, we did ayahuasca in the Amazon, and Vikram came up to me afterwards, and he worked for Shell Oil, and he saw a, a a fallen Shell sign being overgrown by the jungle, and he doesn't work for Shell anymore. I mean, that was such a huge trip. And so, whether it's a jump start, whether it's an opportunity, um, I'm, I mean, it's impossible to say. I'm not trying to encourage it, but uh, what do I want to say here? That there are ways to access these things that Vicky's talking about in terms of the energy flow that Tony was talking about, in terms of the resonant qualities. The way I described Vicky earlier as the musician. And in the meditation, talked about go into that treasure chest that's called by your name. What is it in there that is being called forth that you've been a little hesitant, a little reluctant, whatever to do? And my invitation is do it here. Do it with us. And it brings up that rhetorical question. If not now, when? If not us, who? If not this, what? And usually that's just left there hanging. But when you actually answer those questions, if not now, when? Well, when I get enough room in my bank account. If not us, who? Well, I haven't met who I'm going to do it with yet. I mean, you're going to find out that the answer is no. It's us, it's now, and it's this. I see your question coming up, Vicky. I don't know what a lot of people have cooking for sure. Nor do people know they know some of the things I got cooking, but yeah. I mean, I'm wondering if we should how many Coralus offshoots are there in the world? That organizations that start doing things the way you were doing them.
Yep. I mean, I think it just starts with sharing what are people doing and how might we contribute to each other, and then stuff organizes,
Yeah. Well, we can definitely make that something that happens in May in Utah for those of you who are going to come to that gathering. Jeff, I always love hearing your voice, and you sit there stoically.
Thank you, Chris. I'm hoping that you can hear me well. That has been one of the reasons I have been quiet, bandwidth. However, I have greatly appreciated everything that I have heard from on this call. Well, what comes to me to share is a little bit of poetry that I've been writing. And let me here we glimpse the future that is already here. And by steeping in this vibrational, energetic, consciousness, luscious field, the signal strengthens. And so I would offer that we have perceived something, which now segues to just a few lines from a transmission titled "To Be Divine is Human," where one perceives the assured outcome of the divine surprise, the human enterprise, the end of every doubt and confusion is in view. What remains is to follow the pathways of resolution, which are filled with choices to align all aspects of being with the actuality of being, the one, dot, 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 dot. Okay. So thank you for the glimpse, for the steeping in deliciousness. And for sure, there are far more questions than answers, which is exactly as it should be.
When I had the 18-year-olds for 100 days last year, one of the central themes we were seeking was called grace and ambiguity, and constantly putting them in crazy environments that there was no way out of, and just do the next honest thing. Yeah. Any other burning desires? Thank you, Joshua. All right, then. Vicki, thank you so much for taking 90 minutes out of your life to be with us this morning. Thank you, everybody, for taking time in your life to be here. Each time we meet, every month, it builds on the last month. And your rapport with each other, Jan saying, I'm going to come find Brees in Santa Fe. This connectivity is the pathway to the new future. And I look at the faces on this screen in front of me and the resources and capacity and integrity and willingness and courage that I see in all of you. Yeah, I mean, these are the people I want to make my life with. Jeff, you're at my place in Mexico now. I see it's lovely to get a view of home. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, excellent. So, Ricardo, Rich, you have anything? Pat?
Yeah, I have something that Vicki talked about we have much more than our five senses. And when I was down at your place, I got to spend some time with Jeff about synthesizing my own dilemma of losing my sight physically. And I searched and found a place, which I couldn't believe, that they were actually teaching people how to see blindfolded. It's called Vision Without Eyes, and this guy is in London, Ontario, Canada, but it's being taught all over the world. And right now, I'm starting to see colors, shapes, things like that, using a different sense, a direct perception of transmission of information that creates electrical signals that goes to your brain. And so this is just one other sense of many other senses that we can bring together and teach each other to use to be able to expand and grow. Normally, the only thing that's growing right now and expanding is my hair. But the other thing that they talk about this radical generosity. Everyone knows Robin Kimmerer, who wrote, Blading Sweetgrass, also wrote a book called The Service Berry. And The Service Berry is about the gift economy. And one of the stories in there was about story in the jungle where somebody went and shot a deer, and there was a feast, and there was an anthropologist there, couldn't understand why they were eating it all. Like, why weren't they storing some? Because they had storing capacity. And what the answer that came back was, oh, we store abundance in the belly of our brothers. And the reason why we do that is to create relationship, because they'll store it with us the next time they have a feast. And I think this is one of those things that we're just starting to learn how to do now. Beyond survival, we should all be giving our abundance to our tribe, to that small group that needs and wants to receive things. And the most likely people that they're willing to receive from are the people that they're closest to, because they feel they're trusted, because they live in a safe environment, because we have consistent behavior of providing those gifts to each other. And so I want to leave that as my little thing, is that I don't have much, but whatever I have, I'd like to give to everyone in the group. And one of those things is maybe I can teach you how to see without blindfolded.
Thank you, Pat. Well, that will be a lovely one to end on. It's the top of the hour or the bottom of the hour, depending on where you are on the planet. And thank you, Vicki, for being here. Lovely break from our normal patterns. Thank you all for being here. I urge you to stay in contact with each other. I'm sending the invitation to the gathering in Utah out today, and everybody who registers will go into a WhatsApp group so we can interact with one another there, so it's not a full group thing. So look for that in your emails. In the meantime, keep the faith, open this mind, connect to spirit, and we'll see you in a month.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki. Thanks, Chris.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rich.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you. Chris, I have another call. Did you want to debrief or?
I'm open.
Good.
Yeah. Good to see you, Andro. Yeah.
I'll just letting my person know I'm going to be a bit late. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, friends, I'm going to turn it off on my end. Thank you so much,
Okay, thanks,
Vicki.
Rich. Thank you.
Go, Persian.
Thanks.